Yeah, I'm Ronald Herbert McKella. I was born in Cunnamulla on the 10th of October 1947. My country is Kunja country, which is my father's country, and my mother's country is right next door, called Kunja country. Well, where I lived in Cunnamulla was on the reserve outside the town. That was until I was 13, I think. We interacted a lot with people uptown because at the school there in Cunnamulla, we always got on well with most of the non-Indigenous people, the kids and that. Most of the nuns were pretty good. One in particular was the head nun there, and she really bent over backwards to help Aboriginal kids there. Prior to that, it wasn't real hotshot stuff, because they tended to treat us like outcasts and that. But when she came there, it was a whole new ball game. Most of the time we spent going down the river, fishing and swimming, chasing pigs, riding horses. We always had a lot of horses. In 1962, I was awarded a scholarship to Nudgee Senior College, where I spent 4 years at boarding school. Well, none of my father's people ever went to school, but they supported me when I went away to boarding school. Not financially, just moral support. And the same happened to my mother's, on my mother's side. Some of them would like the idea that I was going to be doing all this stuff. And eventually when I went and finished up at teachers college, they were still supporting me and looking up to me. I was probably the first kid to come off the camp to do that. I was the first Aboriginal person from Cunnamulla to become a school teacher. I might have been the second or third out of the whole community. So I asked for a posting to Dalby, which I got. Well, after that I went to Roma in '69, then I was transferred to Manly West in Brisbane. And I worked at Manly West School from 1970 until I retired from teaching in 2002. Well, when I was a kid, I loved school. I had to walk a mile and a half, 2 miles to school every day. I hardly missed a day in my life. I think through my mother and her mother and father, they valued education right from the start. You know, people complain about kids getting homework now. When I was in year 5, I was doing probably 2 hours homework a night. But I never did it, never had electric lights. I had a hurricane lamp, kerosene lamp. Well, my mother only had a year 3 education. My father had less. But my father always wanted us to go and be a drover or a stockman or something like that, which some of my brothers did. I think education back then was really full on for kids if they wanted to take it on. It was all hands-on stuff. You read books, you read stories, you wrote stories with your own handwriting, and you were taught proper handwriting. I think it was a real good grounding to go and learn things. And, you know, I always took that away with me. Well, the most important thing in education is learn to read and write. Once you learn to read and write, you can do anything. Education doesn't start at school. It starts the day a little kid comes home from the hospital. That's a learning process, but you don't formally write rules for little kids. That's right, that's wrong, that's good, that's bad. By the time they get to school, they know what's right and what's wrong. That's discipline, and that's what they need. Getting back to my mother and father, they're probably the hardest working people in the camp you ever seen. Back when I was a kid, never out of work. Especially my father, he was always away working. If he wasn't driving, he'd be working on a station somewhere. Apart from the education, that's the next most important thing. To have a good work ethic, a good role model for working. A lot of kids from the camping reserve, always looked up to me because of what I was doing. They had a lot of respect for me, and I think they still do. Where I live now in Wynnum, I still get kids that I taught 45 years ago. They'll come and buy me a beer in the pub. You know, I mean, I must have done something right. You're not just being a role model for Indigenous kids, you're being a role model for other people.